It's Patrick, founder of the Screenplay app, the app for student screenwriters. Every week I pose a question or comment to all you screenwriters out there and see what's inside that creative head of yours. Let's begin. For this week's question, we're going to talk about TV. We're going to leave feature writing for a while. Here's the question. Have you ever worked on a TV spec, or do you plan on writing a TV spec? What are your thoughts between writing TV spec and writing original material? For those who don't know what a TV spec is, it's when you take an existing show, for example, Better Call Saul or Barry, and you write an episode based on the characters and the storyline of that show. What a spec does for an agent or producer, they just want to see if you can write within the show's particular voice. A lot of times, shows get staffed based on spec scripts. Whether that's the case now or not, I'm not quite sure. A lot of writers feel that writing specs nowadays is a waste of time. They feel a producer or agent much rather see your original voice than to see how you write within a show's voice. Now, if you plan on submitting to fellowships, it might be a good idea to have a spec. A lot of times, fellowships, they require you to have both a spec script as well as an original TV script. Whether that's the case now, not really. There might still be some fellowships that require you to submit a spec. Whether it's a waste of time is totally up to you. As you know, it takes a lot of time to write a screenplay. If you're going to write a spec, I would suggest you write a spec for a show that you're already watching. The mistake I made was I wrote 2 specs, actually 1.5. The first spec I wrote was for 2.5 Men. It was for Warner Brothers Fellowship. I've never seen 2.5 Men before. Because it was a requirement to submit a spec, I decided to just do 2.5 Men. I caught on some episodes, and I wrote the spec. Luckily, it was a half hour, and comedy is not my thing. As you guys know, science fiction. I'm not a comedian, and 2.5 Men is one of those shows where there's jokes after jokes after jokes. However, I watched the show, and I wrote the spec, and I thought I did a good job. What I did was, I had a friend who was a fan of the show. I let this friend read the screenplay, and the friend said they thought I captured the voice. I thought I was good. I submitted it. Needless to say, I didn't get in the fellowship. This is not to say I wasn't writing in the voice of the show. As you know, those fellowships, competition is tough. The second spec that I worked on was for Empire. Again, I've never seen Empire. I've heard of it. There was a friend I had who's an active friend of mine. They've seen Empire. I got with this friend. We decided to do a bit of research. The thing about those fellowship, if you're going to write a spec, it has to be in the current season of the show. Say if there's a show you've been watching since the beginning, but you haven't caught up, you can't go back and write from season 1 or season 2. You have to write for the current show. For Empire, we had to go and watch every episode from season 1. At that time, I believe it was season 5. And then we had to start working on a spec for season 5. We had to write within the storyline of what was happening now. It was a lot of research. Me and my friend, we met a lot just talking about, okay, what the episode's going to be. It was tough. Needless to say, we didn't finish it, but it was a good experience. With this same friend, even though we didn't finish writing the spec for Empire, we ended up working on an original screenplay. That was a great experience. Whether or not writing a spec is a waste of time, it depends where you want to go in your career. If you want to write for TV, I would say it's a good thing to have under your belt. A lot of times when they're staffing for TV shows, they want to see if you could come in and write in the voice of that particular show. If you plan on writing for TV, then yes, I would suggest you work on a spec. If your focus is feature writing, then you don't need to focus on a spec. Focus on original material, because an agent and producer would much rather see an original voice than a voice of someone who could write in someone else's voice. You get what I'm saying? Writing for spec is not a waste of time unless you want to focus on future writing. Focus on future writing. Leave the spec for when the time comes where you want to get into TV writing. That is our question for this week. Now let's see your answers in the comments below. If you're thinking about writing your first screenplay, go to your favorite app store, download Screenplay app today. The link is in the description below. And remember to always have fun writing. Fade out.